Buenas tardes a todos. Muchísimas gracias por haberse unido a esta sesión en la que podemos contar con la participación de la decana de estudios para personas interesadas en posgrados en, en Nueva Zelanda. En particular, vamos a hablar de convocatorias y oportunidades para realizar doctorados, pero también la profesora Caroline podrá responder sobre maestrías. Eh, Luego habrá una presentación sobre BECAL para poder poner en contexto las aplicaciones y las convocatorias de BECAL. En particular, eh, la presentación de la profesora será en inglés, la mía va a ser en español. Pueden dejar ya todas sus consultas en el chat porque al momento, a la finalización de la sesión tendremos un espacio para preguntas y respuestas. Yo soy Alejandra Abogado, directora de formación para el desarrollo del Ministerio de Economía y Finanzas. En la dirección se encuentra la coordinación del Programa Nacional de Becas de Posgrado al Exterior, BECAL. Nueva Zelanda es un aliado estratégico y más aún con las oportunidades que nos ofrece a través de oportunidades para hacer doctorados y maestrías. Y hoy vamos a escuchar entonces a la profesora Caroline sobre estas oportunidades. Please, Professor, go ahead with the presentation.
Oh, and thank you very much, Alejandra. And in New Zealand, we use first names. So people have got to call me Caroline.
Okay.
I'll go with a Carolina. I was at a Chilean presentation last night, and it was lovely to meet some Carolinas because for once my name translates. So welcome, everyone. As Alejandra, I think, said, because I have no Spanish skills, my name's Caroline Daly. I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at the University of Auckland in New Zealand. And I'm joining you today, and thank you very much for making time at the end of your day to attend this presentation. I'm joining you on behalf of my colleagues across New Zealand. So I'm not just talking about the University of Auckland today, I'm talking about the New Zealand sector. We only have 8 universities in the country. New Zealand is smaller in population than Paraguay. So you probably, you're surrounded by countries that are very large. We are very small, although unlike you, surrounded by sea. So a picture on our screen of the beautiful beaches of New Zealand, but also a focus today on the fantastic educational opportunities in our country. So what I want to do today is 3 things. First of all, provide a little bit of context, because I think New Zealand is fairly unknown in Paraguay in terms of our educational system. Then I want to talk about the offer that I think is very attractive to come and do your PhD with us. And I want to finish with some fairly practical advice on how we take that offer and make it an action. And I should say at the outset, because I think being able to do this on screen is fantastic. Alejandra and I have met on screen before, but I will be in Paraguay in September and would really appreciate the opportunity to follow up with any of you while I'm in town. So, the context. As I mentioned just before, New Zealand, a small country, 5.5 million people, across 2 main islands, North Island, South Island, with 8 universities. And on the screen, you can see the 8 universities, 2 in Auckland, the University of Auckland, where I am, and AUT, Auckland University of Technology. So that's the larger circle at the top of the screen. The University of Waikato in what we call Hamilton, going down the island, the smaller dot, Massey University of Palmerston North, and then at the bottom of the North Island, Victoria University of Wellington. Wellington is our capital city, but quite a small city in comparison to Auckland. Auckland has over 1.5 million people. Wellington has about 300,000. Then down in the South Island, the large dot there is the city of Christchurch, where you will find the University of Canterbury and Lincoln University. And then down at the bottom of the South Island, the small dot there, the University of Otago, which is New Zealand's oldest university. So old for New Zealand means founded in the 1860s. New Zealand is quite a young country. It's one of the last land masses in the world to be occupied by people. The indigenous Maori people who have been in New Zealand for around 1,000 years or so. And then colonial, I'm a historian, so you might say a colonial invasion or a colonial settlement by the British from the early 19th century. So 8 universities, and as you can see, all of them have indigenous names. If you look at our logos, New Zealand is a bicultural nation. We have a document called the Treaty of Waitangi, so we have a founding relationship with our indigenous people, which is quite different from a lot of other colonial settlement countries like Australia or Canada. So if you come to New Zealand, you'll be aware much more of the sort of indigeneity of the country and of our universities. As well as being distinctive in terms of indigeneity, our university sector is also distinctive because not only are we small, but we are very highly ranked. So all of our universities are ranked in the top 3% in the world. And there are many different university rankings, but I think if you're looking to go overseas to do a master's, to do a PhD, you want to know that you're going to a university that has an international reputation, that your investment of time and effort is going to be rewarded. And I see we've got a question about programs to study in English, and Charla, yes, we do. And I'm going to talk about some of those because we've got some offers for you as well if you're coming to do a PhD and you need some English language support first. So highly ranked internationally, highly ranked in a lot of different subjects. So those university rankings are whole of institutions. Our 8 universities are mainly comprehensive. Lincoln is the only university, it's a land-based university that is not a comprehensive university, and therefore it doesn't appear on this screen. But on this screen, you can see that in a wide range of subject areas, our universities rank in the top 50 in the world. So you can be guaranteed you're getting a quality education in New Zealand. It's something we're very proud of as a country. We might be a long way away from everyone, but maybe that makes us focus much more on our studies. We're also very proud of the fact that as a university sector, we do incredibly well in international rankings around the UN sustainability goals. So you might be familiar with those goals around ending global poverty, zero waste, improving health and well-being. The Times Higher Education, THE, does a international annual rankings, impact rankings, and you can see my university, University of Auckland, is ranked 13th equal in the world out of all of the universities in terms of how we are responding in a positive way to the UN sustainability goals. QS, the other main ranking system we use, looks at the world sustainability rankings, slightly different. And those rankings, they look, in fact, we've got some 2024 information that hasn't made it onto my slide, but in this year, the University of Auckland actually ranked 5 and the University of Otago went down a little bit. But at the moment, six of our universities make it into the top 100 in the world in the 2024 QS rankings. These rankings are based on our responsiveness to the world's environmental challenges, social challenges, and challenges around governance. So slightly different from the UN rankings, but I think you can see that as institutions, we are very committed to solving the great problems of the world, including climate change, sustainability, hunger, gender inequality, making sure that governance is robust and appropriate. So as an institution, as a country, New Zealand is renowned for its low corruption index, for its high quality of living. And our education system plays a really important part of that in our country, but also around the world. Half of our PhD students across the country are international, from over 100 different countries. So there's a lot of people coming to study with us because of our high rankings, because of the positive societal impact our institutions are making. And one way they make that impact are through things called the Centres for Research Excellence, the COREs. And the COREs go across the country, and we have many PhD students in them. Different universities host the core. So my university, for example, hosts Manaki Manawa, which is a health core looking at the heart and how to improve the health outcomes of people, especially Indigenous people, in terms of heart health. The Quake Core is very important in New Zealand, hosted by the University of Canterbury. New Zealand does have earthquakes, and so a lot of our civil engineering programs are very focused on how can we be more resilient. But that work goes beyond just how do we build resilient buildings to think about how do we help people cope with disaster. And that might be about how we help children in the school system, and we all have fantastic faculties of education where people are looking at how do we better support children who are facing disasters, for example. So lots of very good research going on across the country in a wide range of subject areas. So comprehensive universities. That's the context. New Zealand, a very safe country. This is the Wellington Harbour, our capital city. You can see very beautiful. A lot of our cities are on the coast, as is Auckland, Christchurch, a little bit inland. A very safe country, highly ranked internationally in terms of quality of life. And I think that's really important when you're thinking about leaving your family, leaving your home to go overseas to study. You want to be in a country that is beautiful, that is safe, that has a fairly nice climate. It gets colder the further south you go in New Zealand. So I'm in Auckland, where it's the middle of winter now. So today is a cool day. It's 16 degrees. Down in the bottom of the South Island, you will get snow. I won't get that in Auckland. So a beautiful country, a safe country, a country with very high rankings for things like healthcare, the education system, the lack of corruption. And a country that I think has some particular offerings for international PhD students that you might be interested in. I'm going to talk now about the New Zealand PhD, and then I'll talk a little bit about the master's programs in New Zealand. The picture here is a student from the University of Auckland who's recently graduated in her PhD in dance studies, Vivian. She is from Bogota, so she came to Auckland to undertake her PhD, which combined choreography and transdisciplinary study. And I think that's one of the exciting things about our universities. Because they're comprehensive, you can have supervisors from many different areas of the university. So in Vivian's case, not only did she work with people in dance studies, but also within our medical program. So what is the New Zealand PhD? In New Zealand, we follow the British model of a PhD. It's a research-only degree done over 3 to 4 years under supervision. So in all of our universities, you will have at least 2 supervisors who will guide you through your subject matter. We offer the PhD in over 100 different subjects around the country. So chances are there's something for everyone. As I mentioned before, all of our universities are highly ranked. All of them offer PhD support. And all of us have co-curricular programs. So as well as focusing on your PhD research, which is the most important thing, of course, we also have programs that we offer to our PhD candidates free of charge to help you develop other skills, what sometimes people call soft skills or transferable skills. That includes support around English language. So if you meet the entry standard to get into our programs, you might still want to take up other opportunities around English language support, which are offered free of charge alongside your studies. At Auckland, for example, we have a weekly group called Let's Talk, where you have the opportunity over a cup of tea or coffee to sit around and talk with people who are native English speakers. So very informal, but just to help you get used to the New Zealand accent, the sense of humour that comes across in language, but also our use of Indigenous words that you might be thinking, why do people keep saying we should meet over kai? What is kai? K-A-I, it means food. So people will often talk about kai, or they'll thank you for your mahi. And you'll think, what is mahi? I've never heard of this. M-A-H-I. Mahi is work. So you put in some effort on something, people say, thanks for the mahi. So a lot of support around English language, but also thinking about employability. What are you going to do post-PhD? What are the opportunities around commercialization? It might be that your research could be commercialized. All of our universities have tech transfer offices, and that allows you to talk with experts about how you might take an idea from your PhD, or maybe another idea, and think about how you form a startup, what that means in terms of registering a patent, IP. We have competitions for student innovation, entrepreneurship. At Auckland, we have a year-long program that runs alongside the PhD around global entrepreneurial skill development for our doctoral candidates. So a lot of other programs being offered free of charge to our PhD students to help you develop the sorts of skills employers want to see alongside your PhD research. Vitor, pictured here from Brazil, came to Massey University down in Palmerston North to work at the Ridditt Institute, one of those centres of research excellence I mentioned before. Victor was supported by a scholarship from that institute. And one of the reasons that institute is able to support students to come from around the world to study with them is because our universities charge all PhD students the same fee. So whether you're a domestic student or an international student, you pay the same fee. That fee is about $5,000 a year. So if you have the BECAL funding and you have the lump sum, your money's going to go a lot further in New Zealand if you are paying $5,000 a year for tuition, and then the rest of the money can support you and anyone else you bring with you. So BECAL, I think, is a great opportunity. Alejandra will talk with you about that scholarship opportunity in a moment. There are other scholarships available in the university system. We don't have a central, a national university scholarship in New Zealand. Each university offers their own scholarships. They are very competitive. So I think your chance of getting funding from BECAL is much, much higher than any of our universities. But of course, you're more than willing to apply for those local funded scholarships. The other thing I wanted to point out is under your student visa, you are able to participate in paid work during your PhD. In fact, for your PhD visa, there is no limit on the amount of paid work you can do alongside your study. Now, your supervisors, and I supervise, I'm a historian by background, we want you to focus full time on your PhD, which is what your student visa is about, to do full-time PhD study. But there are opportunities inside and outside the university to take up paid employment. That might be as a teaching assistant, a lab assistant, a research assistant, or you might want to go and work outside the university as well. So there's no limit on the amount of work you can do, but remember, you are there to do your degree. Alberto, pictured here from southern Chile, came to Auckland to do his PhD and is now at the University of Canterbury on a postdoc. PhD students who come from around the world, you have your student visa, you are then eligible for a 3-year post-study work visa. And so Alberto and his partner Catalina, pictured here, now he's taking up that opportunity to stay in New Zealand after his study and to be employed at the University of Canterbury on a postdoc. So 3-year post-study work visa for all PhD students. Doesn't matter what subject you're studying. Your partner or your spouse, in New Zealand is a very liberal society, so same-sex couples, trans, that is not an issue in New Zealand. Partners or spouse can apply for a work visa while you are studying. So you can bring them. It's a much easier process than them simply applying by themselves to get a work visa. So on the basis of your student visa, they can get a work visa. And if you have children, and they are school age, and in New Zealand schooling, the formal schooling system starts at the age of 5 and goes through to about 18. Students who bring young children with them, your children can go to local schools which are free of charge. And very good. It's a very good opportunity for students to get a good education while your children are also getting a great education. Alberto and Catalina didn't take up that opportunity, but they are having a child now. So their child will be able to go to local schools while they're on the postdoc. So there have been some questions about masters. The master's offer for New Zealand is a little bit different from the PhD offer. Our master's degrees range from 1 to 2 years. There are opportunities to do a thesis only, a research only master's. That's usually a 1-year degree. There are also opportunities to do coursework or a taught master's with a smaller piece of research. That's usually 1.5 to 2 years, or to do coursework only masters. And depending on those, what the focus of that master's is, that might be a 1.5 or 2-year degree. So lots of different options. And again, across all of our universities, literally hundreds of different master's options, taking those different configurations. The master's tuition fee is much more expensive. So ranging around the 25 to 35,000 US per annum. So if you're doing a 2-year master's, obviously you need to double that fee. That's because our government supports our universities to bring in PhD students because of the importance of the research you're doing, but they don't provide our universities with any funding to come and do a master's. So Gloria, pictured here, is from the University of Los Andes in Bogota, came to Auckland to do a Master of Science in Environmental Management, and was able to get government support from her home government to come and do a master's with us. And I know that that's an option with BECAL as well, that there is funding to come. I wish I could have some pictures on my slides of students from Paraguay, but I'm afraid no New Zealand university was able to give me any pictures of current students from Paraguay. So I think from this session and our ongoing engagement, that's something we need to change. While you're studying for a master's degree in New Zealand, you are also able to do some work while you're studying. There are limitations on the amount of work you can do during semester time, 20 hours a week, and then in non-semester time, you have unlimited work rights. You're also eligible for a post-study work visa. So slightly different offer for masters. As I say, much more expensive, but some really fantastic programs that can really help, I think, with career progression. There's also an option at many of our universities, if you are doing a master's by research, to start a master's by research to see if a research career and a research degree is right for you. If it is, there are options to apply to transfer that into a PhD. So if you're not quite sure, you might want to start with a master's by research, and then you can move that research into a PhD if you meet the terms and conditions. There was a question earlier about language support, and sorry, I'm not very good at reading these questions as they come through, but one of the questions I think was, is there support for language study for people who want to come and do a degree with us? And there is. So a number of our universities have English language schools attached to the university. So these are specifically designed to help you prepare to move into a university degree. And I'm pleased to say that at the University of Auckland and the University of Canterbury, so far, and I'll keep working on this with my colleagues around the country, but we've been able to negotiate some discounts for students who have the BECAL scholarship. So at Auckland, it's the English Language Academy, or ELA, and the director and I had a conversation, and he agreed that if someone has a BECAL scholarship, then we will offer a 30% discount on an English language course if you're coming to do a degree with us at Auckland. At the University of Canterbury, my counterpart there, Megan, worked with UC International College, which is their English language school, and negotiated a 20% discount for their 12-week program. And that 12-week program would probably take you from, for example, an IELTS 6.0 up to a 6.5 equivalent. The picture here is of Canterbury, the River Avon, which runs through Canterbury. Canterbury is the most British or English city in New Zealand. So they punt on the Avon just as they do in the UK. So the action. I've given you the context. I've given you the offer. The call to action really is to think about whether this is the right place for you to study, the right degree programs for you to undertake. The first thing you'll need to do, and I'm going to show you some websites for each of our universities where you can do this, is check your eligibility to study with us. If you're interested in doing a PhD, in most cases, our international applicants will already have a master's with research in that degree. So it might not be just a master's by research, by thesis. You might have done some coursework as well, but you will have done some independent research, and you will have received a good grade, New Zealand universities, we want good students coming to join us. You don't have to be a genius. So as a rough guide, and obviously each of our universities will convert your grades into our local New Zealand system, which is a GPA or a GPE, grade point equivalent system, out of 9. So we have a unique system, but out of our system, a 6.0 is a B+. And that's really what people are looking at. Do you have effectively a B+ or a 6.0 out of 9? That is the sort of national entry requirement for a PhD with research. You can absolutely use TOEFL. So I've put the English language. I put the IELTS score there because this is equivalent around the country, 6.5 with no band below 6 or equivalent. So for TOEFL, usually a score around 90 with at least 21 in writing would be a sort of common across the country. Each university can be slightly different. IELTS, I know we're all the same, which is why I put IELTS there. But on each university's website, you will find information about the language tests they accept. In most cases, they'll be looking at having a language test that is current. So within sort of 2 years of starting your PhD with us or your master's with us. I'm going to show you how you apply or how you find a supervisor at Auckland, because I'm from Auckland, so I know the system best. And also at Auckland, I found a supervisor from Paraguay. So excuse me for being parochial, but I will show you the sites for the other New Zealand universities where you can find the same sorts of information. So I think the biggest thing for students who are from outside a university and want to come and study for a research degree is how to find a supervisor. And whether this is for a master's degree or a PhD, the process is the same. So our universities all have websites that can help you and provide the sort of detail on how to find a supervisor. At Auckland, there are 2 main sites. One's called Profiles at Auckland, and you'll see for all of our universities an email address of AC or a website address, ac.nz, AC being academic, NZ for New Zealand. So just in case you find other sites, always check that address. So those 2 websites there can help you find a supervisor. If you click on the profiles or enter that into your web browser, the profiles site, profiles.auckland.ac.nz, you get this screen. And as I mentioned before, the indigenizing of our universities mean we use a lot of te reo, a lot of the indigenous language. So here, on the back of traditional carving is the entry portal into the website where you can type in, if you know the name of a person, put in that person's name. But if you've got a general search on an area you are interested in researching, you use a keyword search function. So if you typed in something like public health or community health, one of the people you would find is Rama. Now, Rama or Rodrigo Ramalho is the only supervisor at Auckland from Paraguay. So I'm using Rama with his consent because he and I have met and talked about the opportunities in Paraguay. He initially studied in Asunción. He then moved to New Zealand later and did his PhD at Auckland, and now he's a senior lecturer in social and community health. So if you know Rama by name, you can type his name in profiles, but if you typed in community health, he's one of the supervisors or potential supervisors whose profile you would see. All of our universities have something similar. So you go in, you can see his background, you can read a little bit about him. I'm quite nosy, so I like to find out a little bit about people. But at the top of the screen, you can also see that you can click on research. And if you do that, you'll find out about his research interests. So you can see, is this someone who potentially is a good fit for you in terms of your research interests? And you can also click on research outputs, where you can see some of his recent research. And if I'm not sure how clear it is on your screen, but if you look at those individual research outputs, you'll see that there's often a PDF that you can download so you can read some of his work. So what I always say to people is do your due diligence. If you're interested in joining any of our universities for a research degree, spend some time on our website, look at our different supervisors, read some of their work. And then, as you'll see with Rama there's a way to contact him. His email address that you can contact him, set up a Zoom, set up a Teams meeting, have a chat with him or whoever else it is you're interested in working with. All of our supervisors are looking for people who have done their homework, who have chosen them because there's a good research fit. They're not looking for people to send them a cold call email saying, dear professor, I would like to come and work with you. Here's my CV. That really, honestly, around the country, very few people will respond to that sort of email. But if you email Rama and say, look, I read your article on, I'm just looking at his recent work on the impact of COVID-19 on mental health. I'm interested in, the impact of disasters or particular situations on mental health. When in your article you reference this methodology, I'm really interested in that. That's flattery will get you everywhere. Academics like to be flattered. They like their work to have resonance with you, that you've read it, that you're engaging with it, that there's a reason why you have contacted that person. So that's how you would do it in Auckland. That's how you would find Rama or other colleagues. There's also at Auckland a couple of websites that I would encourage you to look at. And you can, if you Google, PhD or doctoral study Auckland, you will get to these sites. But the application, step-by-step guide on how to do a PhD application. So that information is on each of our websites. Across the road from me at Auckland University of Technology, they've got a nice tidy URL for their site, Doctor of Philosophy. And if you go onto that site, you'll find links to how to find a supervisor, an explanation of their degree program, the 3 to 4 year research only degree. So that information is all there under that one website. Auckland University of Technology is New Zealand's youngest university, very strong in areas like sports management, very applied in a lot of its research. A little bit down the country, the University of Waikato also has one website you can go into. Waikato is known for being quite a young university as well, so it's the second youngest, a comprehensive university that very much serves its local community, has a very strong relationship with Tainui, the local tribe, and does a lot of research across the board, a recent law school, very strong in humanities, social sciences. And so is Victoria University of Wellington, our capital city, university there, two main websites. The FGR is their faculty graduate research. So that's where you'll find a lot of the administrative information, and the people site where you can find PhD supervisors. So again, searching through their database. The University of Canterbury, down in the South Island, also has uses profiles like the Auckland system I showed you. Again, their graduate school has a great website with lots of information to help you find information about the program, its strengths, the profiles. You can search for supervisors. They also have a link to find a project. So current projects where supervisors are looking for students to join them, and you can search through those offerings. Lincoln University, also in Canterbury, is our only land-based university. So that's really strong in agriculture. That's really the focus of Lincoln. All of the rest of us are comprehensive. Canterbury and Auckland are the only two universities with full engineering schools, but Lincoln is where you go for a lot of agricultural research. Otago, our oldest university, down at the bottom of the South Island. Again, the graduate school there has a lot of information. Otago and Auckland are the two universities with medical programs. So that's where you would go. Not that you can do clinical research as an international student, but it's where you can go to do a lot of health-related research. So that's our university system. I'm really grateful that you've been able to make time to join us today. I think I'm going to hand over to Alejandra to talk about the BECAL offering, and then very happy to stay online and answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolina. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you for being so very thorough in the offers and the university, like very important. And thank you very much for the advice. Do your due diligence if you want to do a PhD, because that's a segue to what I'm going to present now as BECAL. Uno de los consejos importantes que dijo la profesora Carolina es justamente que hagan la debida diligencia o las autogestiones para aplicar a la universidad. Y eso se une perfectamente con las convocatorias autogestionadas de BECAL. BECAL tiene 2 lanzamientos al año. Uno es en marzo y el otro es en septiembre. La convocatoria autogestionada, como bien su nombre lo indica, el estudiante debe autogestionarse la admisión a la universidad por sus propios medios. Y con la carta de admisión, luego de haber sido admitido, luego de haber cumplido con los requerimientos de idioma, con los requerimientos documentales, que son traducciones, etc., la universidad le provee una carta que dice: felicidades, ha sido admitido al programa de maestría, al programa de PhD, y con eso inician la aplicación de BECAL, todo online, todo a través de nuestro sistema, y adjuntando todos los demás documentos. Voy a compartir mi pantalla para que podamos ver un poquitito más de las convocatorias de BECAL. Bueno, BECAL, como bien lo saben, es el Programa Nacional de Becas de Excelencia Académica del gobierno paraguayo. Está implementado desde el 2015, ya son más de 9 años de programa en el que se ha seleccionado a más de 3.000 paraguayos para que realicen sus estudios de posgrado en el extranjero, y ya contamos con más de 2.000 becarios que han finalizado algún programa que BECAL ofrece. El objetivo de BECAL es el de contribuir a capital humano avanzado para el Paraguay, y en particular tenemos un foco muy importante sobre doctorados PhD, tenemos ya una cantidad de profesionales altamente capacitados en maestría. Sin embargo, la ruta hacia la investigación para que se generen nuevos conocimientos es un foco muy importante de BECAL y hoy a través de las oportunidades que mencionó la profesora Carolina podemos ver que una oportunidad es la de Nueva Zelanda. ¿Cuáles son los requisitos para acceder? ¿Es ser paraguayo o ser un extranjero que está naturalizado? Es decir, que tenga una sentencia definitiva que fue naturalizado paraguayo. Luego tener el título de grado si es que uno quiere hacer una maestría o el título de maestría si es que quiere hacer un PhD. Sin embargo, esto hay universidades, quizás esta es una conversación con las universidades que pueden aceptar a una persona directamente a un PhD sin haber pasado por una maestría, pero eso ya es una decisión de la universidad por la que autogestionadamente o con la debida diligencia, como decía la profesora, se debe de consultar a la universidad. Otro de los requisitos es reunir todos los documentos necesarios para la convocatoria y ahí partimos desde la carta de admisión que tiene que otorgar en la universidad, su certificado de vida y residencia, cédula de identidad, certificado de antecedente policial, judicial, si son funcionarios públicos aquí en la audiencia, entonces su resolución de nombramiento, también sus, a ver, los comprobantes de los ingresos, ya sea por salario o por ser contribuyente. También si es que declaran que viven en familia, ¿verdad? Entonces, y que son dependientes, entonces los ingresos de sus padres o su pareja, etcétera. Hay muchos documentos tanto para la universidad como para BECAL, por eso es muy importante entrar ya a la página web de BECAL, descargar la guía. Normalmente no cambian los documentos. Entonces, descargar, ir guardando, ir escaneando todos estos documentos para que luego, cuando llegue el momento de abrir la convocatoria, que es ahora en septiembre, ustedes ya puedan subir todas estas. Pero acuérdense del paso que tienen que iniciar mañana mismo o hoy, hacer la investigación ante la universidad, qué programa uno quiere y postular a la universidad. Postular a la universidad. Los programas en general que pueden hacer a través de BECAL son maestrías, doctorados y postdoctorados. Y también para aquellos que están inscritos en una carrera de grado y que ya han finalizado más del 50% de la malla curricular, entonces son elegibles para hacer una movilidad internacional de grado, es decir, un semestre en el extranjero. Como bien lo decía, está la postulación autogestionada, que la persona debe tener la carta de admisión, debe haber cumplido con todos los requisitos ante la universidad. Y tenemos unos criterios de ranking. Para doctorado son las 300 mejores a nivel mundial en los 4 rankings que le voy a mostrar en un momento. En los 4 rankings se encuentran todas las universidades que vimos hoy. También para maestrías en CTI, los rankings tienen que ser, son elegibles las 100 primeras universidades, las 100 mejores universidades en 3 rankings. Si están interesados en hacer maestrías en educación, son las 300 mejores y para maestrías en ciencias sociales son las 50 mejores. Ahora, si son funcionarios públicos, entonces son elegibles las 300 mejores universidades en todas las áreas de la ciencia, maestría, doctorado, etcétera. Y estos son los rankings que se utilizan. Las guías de bases y condiciones están en donde pueden ver en la página web de BECAL. Al costado hay requisitos generales y documentos de apoyo. Ahí pueden ver ya cuándo es la manutención que BECAL les otorgará para vivir en Nueva Zelanda. Quiero comentarles que los topes de las becas para doctorado que van a recibir de BECAL es de $90,000 y todo lo demás será ya con la universidad. Luego, las maestrías, el tope es de $50,000 y creo que por eso también le mencionaba a la profesora Carolina que los costos para maestrías son diferentes. Eh, Pueden ver los convenios que tenemos, etcétera. Yo dejo de compartir hasta aquí porque la alianza estratégica con Nueva Zelanda se da a través de la convocatoria autogestionada. Hay dos momentos en el año que pueden aplicar a BECAL. Uno es en marzo, el otro es en septiembre. Estamos a un mes y medio de la apertura de esa convocatoria, entonces tienen que apurar la gestión ante la universidad en caso de que ya quieran estar iniciando sus programas en febrero del año que viene. Si quieren empezar sus programas en julio del año que viene, entonces la postulación a becal tienen que hacerlo en marzo. Bueno. Con eso finaliza la presentación de BECAL y quedamos atentas para cualquier consulta que puedan tener. Pueden hacerlo en español en el chat y yo traduzco para la profesora sin ningún problema. Eh, the question, can I use a TOEFL test for the English requirement? That has been answered. Yeah.
Yes, you can. And I think it's probably also important to say that a number of New Zealand universities will make a conditional offer for the PhD based on your English language. And you can get a visa that allows you to do a language course first and then move on to the PhD. So that sort of offer is fairly common.
Yeah. Thank you. Es un muy buen punto el que mencionó la profesora Carolina, porque pueden aplicar a becal con la carta condicional una carta condicional, y normalmente la condición suele ser el idioma. Entonces ya pueden mandar ustedes todos los documentos hasta tanto rindan, ¿verdad? Pueden inclusive aplicar a becal con la carta condicional, pero al momento de la firma del contrato ya tienen que demostrar que tienen una carta incondicional. So for the becal process, they can apply with the conditional offer.
Fantastic.
And they can even be selected with the conditional offer. And when they sign their contract, they have to present their unconditional offer letter. So it's aligned. It's completely aligned.
Yeah, fabulous.
Another question. What are the requirements for aspiring master's degree candidates in engineering for the University of Auckland?
So there are so many different engineering programs. So it really depends what sort of program you're interested in. On our website, you can find in our Faculty of Engineering, so we have the highest ranked Faculty of Engineering in the country. And we have a lot of strengths in civil engineering, chemical, materials engineering, engineering science, geothermal engineering, engineering management. So there are many different types of engineering. Usually students would have, if you have, for example, if you're an accredited engineer, and you want to come and do a professional qualification, like upskilling in engineering management or something like that, you would normally have a sort of B-level degree or above. So in our system, a GPA of between 4 and 5 out of 9 in order to get into the program. So what we're trying to do there is support your career aspirations rather than require you to be a genius to come. If you don't have an engineering background, for example, you might have a science background, then there are some opportunities to do, for example, civil engineering as a master's level program, to come in and do a master's of civil engineering over a couple of years. So that is an option for international students. Those sorts of programs are expensive. As I mentioned before, that's where the tuition fees are really quite high. So you just need to be aware of that.
So I said that BECAL has 2 rounds of applications each in the year, one that starts in March, the other one in September. Therefore, this question, when do PhD programs normally start in New Zealand?
Oh, great question. So most of our universities will allow you to start on any month of the year. Victoria University has 3 start dates a year, but at most universities you can start on the 1st of any month. And we do that because we know that a lot of our students are international. You all have different scholarship rounds, you all have different completion dates from your home country degrees, and you're applying for visas and they take different amounts of time. So we have flexibility built into our system.
That's fantastic. And my recommendation then, if they can choose their starting month, it should be around September.
Yeah, a lot. A lot of our international students will start in September because that's when people are used to starting.
Yeah.
A lot of our local students will start in March because that's when they're used to starting.
Fantastic. So that was my other recommendation, to start either in September or in March. So if you choose to start in September, then apply to BECAL in March. If you choose to start your PhD in March, then apply to BECAL in September, in 2 months. However, Caroline, this is not the same for masters.
No, this is just for PhD. So our master's programs across the country operate by semester. Our first semester of the year, and we just call them semester 1 and 2, starts at the beginning of March, and our second semester starts in the middle of July. So they are the start dates because master's programs are often very focused. You're working in courses with other students, and therefore there's 2 start dates.
What's the living expenses average for?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and all of our websites around the country will tell you about the cost of living. Especially if you look at our international pages on our website for international students. What I would say for the BECAL students looking at the PhD and looking at if you're receiving, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's $90,000 in total. So if you think about a 3-year PhD, if you take 5,000 out for tuition, that leaves you with 25,000 US. That is more than our local university scholarships pay. So Auckland has the most generous scholarship scheme in the country. Our students get about 34,000 New Zealand dollars a year, which would be under 25,000 US a year. So my students live on that. They are not rich on a scholarship, but they can pay the rent, they can pay the food, the bills, and get by. And remember, you can also do some part-time work, which can be great for your CV, but also great for your bank account. So that work, New Zealand has quite strict employment laws, minimum wage, etc., to protect you. So I definitely think with the BECAL scholarship for a PhD in New Zealand throughout the country, that is fine to live on for an individual. I'm not talking about the family, I'm talking about the student who receives the scholarship. Pay your tuition, live on the scholarship, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and also BECAL pays in American dollars, and
The
students.
exchange rate is positive for you.
Exactly, it's very positive. So as you mentioned before, due diligence, like look at all the exchange rates in tuition, in cost of living. And
yeah. As I say, you're better off than the students at Auckland, and the Auckland students are the best off in the country. So it's a good deal.
Indeed. So that's a question for me. As I understand, a master's degree is 50K per year. And that's the limit for BECAL.
It's around 25 to 35 US a year in tuition. It does vary by program across the country, but the master's that's the expensive option.
Yes, and if you do get the scholarship, then BECAL will pay the tuition, for example, will pay the 50K to the university, and it's the responsibility of the student if they want to go to co-finance the remaining amount. And BECAL has created a partnership with a development bank here to.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, for students to have
a good loan.
Loans, like very easy, accessible loans for students. So
yeah. So in the slides, I had the picture of Gloria from Colombia, who's doing her master's at Auckland. She had the similar agreement. So Colfuturo was paying her tuition fees, and she had a loan from EasyTech, so low interest rate loan, and she was able to secure her visa on that basis. And then obviously when she returns to Colombia, she will be paying back that investment people have made in her.
Is there a minimum time requirement for people to have working experience?
No, for our degree programs don't work like that. Many of our students are coming straight through from school. So, a lot of people on our campuses are quite young because they're school leavers coming straight from school into a degree. For our master's programs, we have a number of people who are changing careers or upskilling. So the master's cohort tends to be a little bit older. And for the PhD cohort, we have a mix of people who've come straight through. So they'll be in their early 20s when they start, to other people who I taught someone who came to do her PhD in her 70s. So we have a whole mix of people, but it's not based on work experience. It's just based on lifestyle. When you're free of the children and you can pursue your studies, or you're changing your career, or life presents that opportunity. But when you apply, you'll be asked to upload a CV for a PhD. And in that CV, if you have been working, and for example, if you've been working in a university in a lab, but not for a degree, you might want to mention that work and the sort of experimental work you've been doing, or the skill set you have that you would be bringing to your PhD, but it's not a requirement.
Thank you very much. And in honor of time, I will ask one last question, which is, what are the requirements for aspiring masters in marketing or business? And before you answer that, Professor, I would like to say that BECAL doesn't fund marketing or business, as BECAL is aligned with the demands of the country's needs.
Sure.
So just for this person to be aware of,
Yeah, very
you could go
important.
to New Zealand to study this. However,
They'll be self-funding.
self-funding, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, and you will be self-funding, but do look at all across our universities. There are some scholarships for international master's students. They will usually make a contribution to tuition. So I can tell you at the University of Auckland that there are some, you might be able to get a $10,000 New Zealand dollar contribution to your tuition fee, but you would be paying the rest. So usually students moving into a master's in marketing and commerce will have an undergraduate degree in that area with, again, a sort of B average type score. We do have, and I can speak most about Auckland here, things we call conversion masters. So what we've found is that sometimes students will have done an undergraduate degree in a very different subject and then want to do a master's qualification in business. So at the Auckland Business School, there are master's degrees that you can do over 1.5 years for students who do not have a commerce background. I'm a historian, so maybe you've done an undergraduate degree in history, and then you think, actually, I would like to move into marketing, business, commerce, accounting as a postgraduate qualification. That's when you can do what we call a conversion master's. And I know the Auckland master's degree is best, but a number of our business schools around the country, at Waikato, down in Wellington, Triple Crown of accreditation, which means that they are ranked in the top 1% of business schools around the world. So New Zealand has very strong business schools. I understand why BECAL might not sponsor students to do those degrees, but if you are interested, then, as I say, a sort of B average grade in your undergraduate degree, if you don't have a commerce background, look at what we call conversion masters.
Okay, Professor, what's the final remark what's the summary for people to take? What should they do? What are the next steps?
Next steps. Okay, well, for those of you who have the time, I'd love to meet with you in September when I will be in Asuncion, and I'll be working with Alejandra about my visit. So that will be, I'll be in the city 18, 19, 20 September this year. So that's a great opportunity when you've one action, call to action, might be to think about your other questions that we can discuss in person, which would be fantastic. But I think my main advice to students always is do your homework. It's a really big investment. Hopefully BECAL will sponsor you, but it's a really big investment of your time and effort to pursue higher degree studies, a master's, a PhD, and especially to do that overseas. So spend the time checking where you want to go and why you want to go there. I'm going to tell you to come to Auckland because I've worked here for 31 years. There's a reason for that. But New Zealand universities, as I mentioned before, all in the top 3% in the world, all offer fantastic opportunities, are all located in cities that offer fantastic opportunities in terms of that life-work balance. Do your homework. Find the right program for you. Find the right supervisor for you. I think it's a privilege to be able to pursue higher education, especially at postgraduate levels. So make that work for you. It's worth spending the time now, checking where to go, who to work with, so that you can make the very most of it and bring back to your country, your knowledge, your connections, your insights that can help make the world a better place. And I think that really is what higher education is all about.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolina.
I can be a Carolina.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Looking forward to your visit in September.
Thank
We
you.
will organize to have these 42 people that were here and
Fantastic.
even many
And
more.
thank you everyone who joined and who is still on the call. I'm impressed.
Oh, yeah, the interest to go to New Zealand is there. It's
Absolutely.
I'm very happy. I'm very surprised by this, and thank you very much for having Paraguay in your scope, for providing these benefits for Paraguayans. Together with BECAL, we will be able to send people to study and for them to return to Paraguay and then contribute to the development of the country.
Really important.
It is, yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good rest of the day for you.
Yes, I'm going to go on to my next Zoom call to talk about my trip back to Latin America now. So very excited about that. And thank you very much, Alejandra. Thank you to everyone who's joined today's call. And I hope to meet as many of you as possible in person in September. Hola.
Buenas tardes a todos y quedamos atentos en BECAL para cualquier consulta que pudieran tener. Hasta luego.